Okay, everybody, I'm back. It's day 2. It's Saturday here in Houston, and we continue with the weekend in the life of Donna Partow. For those of you who wonder what it is that I do, it's not quite as glamorous as you might think. I'm in my hotel room with a pair of pink socks, and the maid was just here cleaning, and that was kind of nice to recognize that I don't have to do the work. But a lot of my time, as I shared with you yesterday, is kind of spent in the hotel room, just praying, getting my thoughts together, getting my notes together, and occasionally second-guessing what I said last night, or hopefully not too much time spent doing that, but preparing myself spiritually for really the battle that's waged for these women and the destinies of their families that are at stake. Last night I opened by talking about prayer, which is my favorite subject, and if you've never heard my teaching on the Mighty Muskox, that's where we always begin, because the muskox is the only creature on the earth that will not run in the face of its enemies. In fact, when it hears the wolves, which prey upon muskox, when it hears the wolves begin to howl, rather than running away, which is instinctively what most creatures would do, what we're tempted to do, it runs to the battle. It runs to that place where it knows the war is going to be waged most fiercely, and that's the vulnerable. John Wesley, I'm doing a Methodist event here, and of course John Wesley is their founder. And John Wesley said that some people want to live within the sound of chapel bells, but I want to run a mission a yard from the gates of hell. I love it, and that's how I want to feel too, and that's the motto of the muskox. They run to the battle, and they form a defensive circle around the most vulnerable, and they just stand there, and they say with their countenance, we're not going to move. We are not going to move. We are going to defend the weak and the young. And it's just a beautiful picture of what I think God wants us to do. I think He wants us to stand in the gap on behalf of those who really just can't stand on their own. Whatever too many of life's blows have made them weak, or their own choices have left them vulnerable, whatever the case, it doesn't matter. It's interesting that when the muskox take up position, they're not looking at those who need protection to figure out what they may have done wrong to get themselves in that situation. They're looking out, they're totally focused on fighting that enemy. So that's kind of where we began last night, with the picture of what it means to stand in the gap and to run to the battle and to be willing to stand in prayer on behalf of others. And then this morning I did kind of what would again be another one of my signature messages, and that is that rather than fighting the real battle, which is against the devil and his band of demons, and in fact the world, the flesh, and the devil, the Bible identifies as our three enemies, rather than waging wars worth fighting, we fight all the wrong battles. We fight to prove we're right. We fight to have our own way. We fight for vindication and justification and all of the stuff that really just does not matter in the grand scheme of things. And when we get like that, we become what I call a porcupine. Because a porcupine is a creature with a lot of great points, but nobody wants to be around it. And oh my, how I have battled with what I call the porcupine state of mind. And I think it's a daily battle for most women. We get so caught up, and we're absolutely right. We've got a lot of good points, but, God's bringing me to the place where I just don't need to have an opinion about everything. I talk about having a mind and a soul at rest. Our soul actually encompasses our mind, our will, and our emotions. I want, I think, I feel. I want, I think, I feel. That's the area of the soul. And that's where the porcupine dwells. And God wants to deliver us from, what I want, what I think, what I feel, and bring us to the place where we're totally focused on the kingdom assignment. And so this morning, I kind of gave the overview of the porcupine state of mind, and then shifted and talked about David. And David, I believe, really was the perfect example of what God is looking for in us, because he was radically committed to kingdom assignments, to advancing the kingdom. David made a lot of mistakes. I mean, his personal life was a train wreck. He was a bad parent. Apparently wasn't a very good husband either, because he had a bunch of wives and just really committed adultery, committed murder, murdered his lover's wife. But God didn't take the kingdom away from him. And you contrast Saul. What did Saul do? Saul let some sheep live. Now, in the natural, we would think that letting some sheep live when God told you to kill the sheep does not even begin to compare to the severity of adultery, murder, multiple wives. Hello? But you know what? And this is what God has shown me, and what I emphasize today. Saul was not on task with the kingdom assignment. God gave him an assignment, and he played games with it. David, whatever personal shortcomings and frailties he had, when it came to kingdom assignments, he did not play around. And I think that's what God loved about him. And we looked at Ziklag, which was rock bottom for David. Everybody had turned against him, and his wives had been hauled off, and his kids had been hauled off, and he was going to lose his best friend within 24 hours and also ascend to the throne. But it was rock bottom from him. Excuse me, I've been talking all morning and losing my voice. But he stepped aside, he strengthened himself in God, inquired of the Lord and said, okay, God, I'm not going to stand here talking, although David did tell God all his problems, but he said, what is the assignment here? What's the assignment here? And God said, the assignment here, go after the guys who took the stuff and bring it back. Take back what the enemy stole. That's the kingdom assignment. David didn't hesitate. Went back to these 600 men who, like 5 minutes ago, were ready to stone him. And because of something that happened in the spiritual atmosphere, I believe, as he inquired of God and got in alignment with what God was already intending to do, God took care of all these 600 guys. And the Bible tells us that all these men who a few verses before were ready to stone him, all of a sudden they're with David. They're with him. And they're ready to go out to battle with him because it's about the kingdom assignment. And that was my message this morning, that we need to forget about ourselves and what we want, what we think, and what we feel, and our opinions, and our ideas, and what we need God to do for us, and become like David, who was just so kingdom-focused and on task, on assignment, when it came to kingdom concerns. So now you have a good idea of what I've shared with the women. I think I'm going to go down, maybe have lunch with them. I'm kind of praying about that. I've kind of been enjoying, just kind of prayer and fasting and being in my room and worshiping God. And although I did get some strawberries last night, I did eat some of the strawberries. They were pretty good. But they've got a long day today with a lot going on. And then tonight I'll do another session, and we're really just praying that tonight, when it's a little bit more leisurely, not so much on the clock, we'll really have time, and hopefully I'll be able to pray with many of the women. I may end up praying with all of them. That's kind of my favorite thing, is praying. So we'll pray with a good number of women tonight for sure, and we'll commission them to become one of those mighty Muskox prayer warrior princesses